So a little bit about top employers. I was going to say we're quite unique, but in a university I shouldn't use such an oxymoron. We are unique. We are a global business, but with only about 120, 130 employees. So we deal with more than 1,500 global companies, certifying them on their people practices and giving them the top employer certification, based out of our HQ in the Netherlands and offices in 9 other countries. We operate on what we call the HR Best Practices Survey, where we look at 10 key topics within people strategies. And from that, we determine and analyse whether somebody reaches the requirement to be certified as a top employer. What that also allows us to do is gather a great deal of data from these top employers as to what is currently happening and what is current best practice within the marketplace. And that allows us to share an annual HR best practices report and pull together white papers which provides insight, as well as days like today where top employers can share their best practices and their case studies, and hopefully we can all learn and improve and develop from that. And the reason we do it, because we fundamentally believe that if we help organisations accelerate their people strategies, it allows the employees to have a better world of work. It's as simple as that. So I've got about 15 minutes now. We have a white paper coming out sometime in June, and what I've done is just taken a few little pieces from that white paper and overlapped it with some existing data from the likes of the CIPD, Gartner and others, just to pull together what I think are some interesting thoughts and a couple of calls to action that I think within HR are relevant to all of us. 3.8% is the current unemployment level in the UK. Latest ONS stats. Now bear in mind that anything below 5 is generally considered to be pretty much full employment. That's quite astounding. That's the lowest level since 1974. Productivity in the UK, on the other hand, we're only underperformed by Italy out of the G7. And one of the really scary things about this, it's not just that we're working less. We're actually working more, on average 2% more per week, but we're delivering less GDP from that work. So our productivity is actually declining. And that is actually a decline in Q1 2019 versus 2018. 61% of employers say that they are finding it difficult to fill at least one of their current vacancies. 41% of all organisations say that filling vacancies generally is more difficult than a year ago, and only 6% say it's easier. And if you look at what organisations are doing to try and overcome these challenges, some of it's great. Upskilling existing employees, paying more, hiring more apprentices, and recruiting candidates from overseas. The worrying one is number 5, which isn't on this chart. 1 in 7 companies admit to lowering their standards to fill vacancies and deliberately accepting people who don't have the competencies or criteria that they would desire in that role because they want a warm body in the seat. So what we can say is, I don't like the phrase war for talent, but so far I've not really found anything that replaces it, that everyone understands in such an easy way. It might be a dreadful phrase, but the reality is, with unemployment at the lowest level since 1974, with 60% of companies finding it more difficult to fill vacancies, where salary increases are driving reduced productivity, where companies are accepting lower standards for employees, you can see that having the right talent strategy and the right policy to get the right people into your business is absolutely crucial, never more so than before. And it means, I found this phrase from a report by Delaware and SAP, adaptability and agility are fundamental to future-proofing success. And it is. This is about making adaptability and transformation an everyday part of what we do within our businesses, particularly within HR. It's about being adaptable and agile, not as and when or on occasion, but making a fundamental part of our daily activity. We can see this when we look at the latest data from the Best Practice Survey from top employers. The top 3 challenges for talent strategy haven't largely changed. Align it with the business, to improve business performance, to develop future leaders. But over the last 4 years, to manage cultural and organisational change has become the 4th most important priority for top employers, up from number 10. And I think for me, really sums up the challenge that businesses are accepting they have to face. And Mercer's Global Talent Trends report this year said that 3/4 of executives predict significant disruption in the next 3 years. In 2018, only 26%. So in the space of a year, the perspective of senior executives within organisations in the UK has gone from 1/4 thinking there'll be serious disruption to 3/4 believing there will be. So we drill down, some of strategy is fundamentally obvious. So when we ask top employers what are key things for them, some of it is things that persist through time. So 88% say that communication is key. 97%, you've got to handle things in a coordinated and consistent way. And almost as many, 89%, have properly formalised processes and structures to ensure that the talent strategy stays aligned to the broader business strategy. This is all specifically with regards to talent strategy. So if you have an idea of what you want to do, but you haven't formalised it, you're not coordinated, and you're not communicating it, it's not going to be effective, or not as effective as it could be. And a really striking feature that came out in this year's data was the almost universal enthusiasm and commitment of executive teams within the business. They are playing an increasingly active role in talent strategy and getting more and more involved in what has historically perhaps been an HR domain. The executive team absolutely see this as key and fundamental to the business success. And we can see here that when you look at all of these processes that we ask top employers whether they do, that no answer gets less than 94. So 94% of all top employers this year are doing all of these things. So talent agenda is really strong and really high on the board's agenda. Now, simplified employee life cycle, talent acquisition, talent development, talent retention, but how do we achieve that transformation through talent through these 3 parts of the life cycle? So the most important objectives of talent acquisition policy for top employers are threefold, and all 3 are pretty much equal. Number 1 is ensuring new hires meet long-term capability. Number 2 is fulfilling the demand. Number 3, which is new, is creating a strong employer brand. So we all know that over the last few years, the concept of having a strong employer brand has become more relevant and more important. It is now fundamental. We see from our top employers that it is one of the top 3 key priorities they have for talent acquisition. And social is utterly dominant. So 74% of top employers use social to share inside stories with their potential talent base and to build an authentic and inspiring employer brand. But they don't just do it ad hoc. So you can see here that 38% of them actually have clearly defined success metrics for social networking. 60% of them have created both internal and external communities within social media to manage both alumni networks and potential talent. So social has, when I say social is dominant, it has been for a while, but it is now dominant and it has to be formalised. It's no good playing at it. It's something, it is a key and fundamental part of what we need to do to achieve decent talent acquisition. Within talent development, we see 2 clear and distinct traits that talent development now encompasses both leadership development and career development as 2 distinct strands, and impacts every level of the organisation. So when we look at leadership development, we can see the change over the last few years, that there's a slight negative dip on description of leadership culture, 2 basis points over 4 years. But when you look at overview of policy and process, detailed framework for leadership development strategy, and having clear objectives for leadership development, that all of the top employers in the UK have strong growth in all of these areas, and they see this as something that is essential to that talent development part of the journey. Is getting that leadership development correct is important. In addition to these things, there are obviously 93% of top employers undertake take part in defining leadership competencies. 89% help mentor future leaders, and 94% are involved in opening programs for leadership development. So it goes back to this point. Having your executive team involved in talent is hugely important. It's also about leadership for all. I think in the past, very often leadership was seen as getting the senior leadership ready for the future. We now see everywhere that leadership development is being designed for different roles and levels with clear competencies and behaviours defined at each level. It's pretty much the democratisation of leadership development. So we see that the businesses are accepting that throughout their organisation, at every level, they need to start preparing leaders for the respective levels to take charge and help bring the business forward. Leadership development also is seeing new modes of delivery. So we see peer assessment, KPIs, role play, all being systematically and seriously applied with purpose throughout the organisation. And career development is now similarly for the many, not the few. And there's a clear trend towards more broad-minded approach to career development, using mentoring, coaching, training, special assignments, and absolutely using managers. You can see here, 90% of top employers expect their managers to develop their team members. It's not without risk though. Recent study from the University of Salford, 1 in 3 line managers see competent subordinates as potential challengers and are potentially likely to ostracise them, bully them, and force them out of the business. Terrifying stat, a third, 33.8% of managers fear competent subordinates. So it goes back to that earlier point about leadership development, is to make this whole cycle work, we need the right people managing and leading to ensure that we can then develop and bring through the next level of people within the career. And if you don't get the whole life cycle right, there's a risk that things go wrong. Within talent retention, engagement is key. And unfortunately, it's still a challenge for many businesses. So this is research from Deloitte recently. 32% not stimulated by what they do, 27% admitting to not giving their best at work, and 36% of workers believing that what they do is not meaningful. Counter side of it, what people believe are the top 5 motivating factors that they look for: job security, being trusted to do what they do, having competent leaders, having clearly defined responsibilities, and having a sense of purpose. So actually, we talk a lot about millennials bringing a totally brand new approach. What to me this says is actually we've got a melding of very long-standing motivating factors, so job security, competent leaders, clearly defined responsibilities, but merging with that is newer things such as having a clearly defined sense of purpose and that element of trust. When employees leave, staying in touch is really important. What we're seeing now is alumni networks becoming more important than ever, and being able to keep in touch with former employees to act as brand ambassadors, advocates for the business, and potentially to bring them back in the future as more future talent is becoming key to the talent retention part. A really interesting thing we noticed this year in the survey, we obviously adapt the survey a little bit each year looking for best practice. And although the score's low this year, that is a reflection that this is something new and that even amongst top employers, something that many currently aren't doing. But I know through conversations with people, it's something that we'll see a lot more of. And it's holding a 6-month post-exit interview with regretted losses. So again, like a lot of these things, it's a no-brainer. It's not rocket science. You ring up the people you wish you hadn't lost 6 months after they've left and go, how are things going? If things are going great for them, brilliant. You're reinforcing your alumni network. If things are going not so well for them and the grass wasn't greener, you've got the opportunity to bring somebody back into the business that you know is a cultural fit, that you know is aligned to the values, that you don't need to train up and that you don't need to pay a recruitment fee for. Really, really simple. And yet even within highly engaged, highly motivated, top-performing top employers, currently only 4% of them do it. So that is definitely something we expect to see more of in the coming years. And what is the point of all of these things? What does transformation through talent mean? Why should it be a focus for us? And Richard Mosley, who's the author of The Employer Brand, summed it up best, I think. Employer branding is a key component of effective organisational leadership. And if companies can't attract, engage, and retain the right talent, they're unlikely to achieve their business objectives. It really is as simple as that. if we don't attract, retain and engage the right people, it becomes significantly harder for us all to achieve our business strategies. And if the words alone don't persuade you, MIT did some research, and organisations in MIT speak in the top quartile of employee experience, so they have great employee engagement, are twice as likely, will deliver twice as much innovation, they will deliver double the customer satisfaction, and they will deliver 25% more profit than companies in the bottom quartile. And for me, I can't think of a better reason outside of we want to do the right thing for our employees than by doing so, it actually benefits our bottom line, our customers, and our future innovation. Thank you very much.